Hello everyone, I'm Annie Gibbins and you're listening to Memoirs of Successful Women, the podcast where you get to hear candid conversations with fascinating women from around the globe who share aspects of their business and life journey, how they measure their success and what they have learnt along the way. Today, it's my absolute pleasure to be interviewing Dr. Shanel Sharma, who is an ophthalmologist, entrepreneur, an absolutely divine human being. I look forward to exploring Shanel's journey to becoming a leading ophthalmologist in Sydney, who also publishes scientific papers, speaks at conferences and events, runs her own eyewear business while raising two beautiful children. Welcome to the program, Shanel.
Thank you for having me.
How does a girl who was raised in Wollongong go through her career journey to become a top ophthalmologist in Sydney?
Well, thank you. That's very flattering for starters, because I'm not sure that I see myself in the same light. But for me, it was simple. My parents are doctors, so I was always medically inclined, and I wanted to be able to make a difference. And I initially was going to do obstetrics because, you get the reward of delivering the baby and the happiness and being part of a happy time in somebody's life. But I also knew that I wanted to have kids and that was not going to be ideal scenario for family life. And when I did a elective term in ophthalmology, I was really moved by the effects that we have on people's lives, or the ophthalmologists at the time were having on people's lives. So one lady really stuck with me because she was dying. She had a lymphoma and she knew she only had a few months to live according to her professionals. And she had her cataract done in one eye, and she was sitting there crying at the post-op visit that this was the first time she'd ever seen her granddaughter properly. And she was now happy to die because they'd changed her life.
Wow.
I'd given her the capacity to see and enjoy her granddaughter for, the first time, and that it made it all worth it. And so I realised that for me, I wanted to do something that improved people's quality of life, not necessarily extended their length of life. Not to say that I don't disagree that length of life is important, but that was what moved me. Okay. And so that was really when I started to decide that I'm going to do ophthalmology. Then I spent more and more time in the clinics and around other ophthalmologists, and the more I saw, the more I realised that this was the specialty for me.
Fantastic. Were your parents, you've mentioned both of your parents are doctors. Are they ophthalmologists as well, or were they from a different specialty?
No, so my parents have both practiced as general practitioners in Australia predominantly, but my mother was an obstetrician overseas and my dad was a surgeon. And in those days, my mother used to deliver babies, and I remember my mum leaving many times when we were little to deliver a baby. And so I guess I didn't want to do that to my children, and for me, having children was a really important part of my future life.
Okay, so interesting. So that's been that choice of I'd love to be an obstetrician, but not happy with the lifestyle and the impact on your own kids. And how many kids have you ended up having during your career?
I've got 2 kids. That's all I'm having.
2 is enough. Absolutely. So how did you...
Amazing women like you.
Amazing or slightly crazy. I did have them 2 by 2, so it was a little bit different. But anyway, so how did you? So when you were becoming a doctor back in medical school day, you knew you wanted to make a difference. You became a doctor, and then all the specialties line up as options. You knew it couldn't be obstetric. Was it by default that you got a placement in ophthalmology, or did you know as part of that medical training, ophthalmology straight up is the direction I want to head?
So you probably know that you don't default into ophthalmology because ophthalmology is one of the hardest specialties to get into. So you've got to really want it. And I was never sure that I was going to be good enough to get it, but I was damn well going to give it a go because that's what I wanted to do.
Fantastic. One focused woman. Absolutely. All of the specialties are extremely competitive to get into. So it's a huge, thrill and opportunity to be selected and to be able to pursue that dream and to become qualified as a fellow. And so you then pursued that and you became a fellow of RANSCO, the College of Ophthalmology, which is a great achievement. How did you find that being a woman going through there? Did you feel that it was different as a woman going through the specialty? Did you, is it an equal representation of gender? Did that have any impact in your training?
So for me, being a woman has never been it's never been something I've been aware of as being an issue. I saw my mum as a doctor, so I guess I had strong role models that there was never a question about whether there would be the ability for me to do it. I went to an all-girls school and we were empowered. Nobody was... I never felt that being a woman was going to hinder me in any way or be able to, because I was a girl.
Yeah.
If there was a reason I wasn't going to achieve, it wasn't because of my gender or my racial background.
Yeah.
They were neither factors in my life, and as being something that I thought as obstacles.
Isn't that wonderful? I think that's an absolutely wonderful testimony of the life that we're currently living here in Australia at this time. What were the biggest challenges then as you navigated, having children at the same time of juggling your career, growing that career? I know you've had time overseas in London as well. What were the biggest challenges during that time?
I think the first and foremost thing I need to say is that I wouldn't have been able to do anything without my parents, because my mum and dad have really moved heaven and earth through supporting me right through my career. So started in high school, and then when we went to London, I had 2 young children. One was 2, one was 6 months old. My mother spent a year in London. My dad came back and forwards between London and Sydney, running their own practice as well.
Wow.
So without that kind of support, my career would have been left behind, because my husband is also an ophthalmologist and he would have continued doing his fellowship. And I would have looked after the children. I mean, that would have been the natural thing. So I can say, without having a strong lot of parents who were determined that I shouldn't be left behind, I wouldn't have been able to do it. You're right, that's the absolute fact. The other thing, I have a really supportive husband. He never feels threatened and he takes a back seat. And when we work equally. Even now, we juggle the kids equally. We don't have a nanny. One of us will drop the kids, one of us will pick them up. He does his best to cook on the days he's got them in the afternoon and do homework. And I think for my daughter, it's been an interesting experience, because she doesn't at all, going back to your last question, perceive that women may be behind. In fact, she taunts her brother that I'm a girl, I can do everything you can do, including having babies. So
it's a superpower.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, with the support around us, I've been able to do all the things that I've been able to do. But if I didn't have that support, I wouldn't have been able to.
It's brilliant. It certainly does take a village for everyone who has success opportunities. It's never as easy as it looks. There's an army of people behind most people making it happen. The logistics of actually juggling life, juggling business, juggling kids and their issues, and they're all things that you want to juggle, but you do want to keep them in balance, and to be able to keep them in balance and to be able to keep yourself healthy and well and thriving, we definitely need our support system. So it sounds like you're blessed with a beautiful family.
I am really lucky, but on the other thing is, you have to work out, at least for me, I had to work out what things were really important that I needed to worry about, and what were the things I wasn't going to worry about that maybe are important to other people. So for me, I don't have to be there every afternoon for the kids, as long as either my husband or my mother or somebody I trust is with them. I didn't have to change every nappy for me to feel like I'm a good mum. I don't do certain things in the house when I get help. So there are certain things that I've had to say, okay, well, I'm going to let those things go.
Yeah.
And I've got limited energy. I'm going to focus it on these other things which are more important to me.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point to raise, and for other women to appreciate that. That's right. Trying to do everything is impossible. And if you are working at a higher level, higher capacity, there's only so many hours in the day. And it is extremely important to consciously plan and be aware, what do I value most? How should I be using my time? What is the most important thing? Or what is the consequences of doing some other tasks, and so if they're lower down in the value, what can you outsource? What can you actually just not do? I think that's a really important factor in planning. Yeah. So with those things then, if you look back now over the last 10 years of growing your career, you're now lecturing at different conferences, you're publishing multiple papers. How do you manage your time effectively to be able to sort of keep growing your career in that capacity?
Well, I think it's all those things that we've just talked about. For me, it's always a matter of looking at, okay, well, in 10 years' time, what do I want to look back and what would I look back and be proud that I've done? And what will I not regret not having done? So, a great mentor said to me once, nobody ever looks back on their deathbed and says, I wish I did more housework, or I wish I did more of certain things. And it's different for every person.
Yeah.
Right? So when I think about, well, what am I going to spend my limited resources and my limited energy on? It's those things of what will I not regret later on if I haven't done, and what will I be proud of having done. And so that's how I divide my time. And then it makes it easier for me to crystallize what am I going to spend my energy doing.
Absolutely.
But I do live by a timetable.
You'd have to, absolutely. So with that then, if you then look back now on the career that you've had thus far, how do you measure your success? What does success look like to you?
Well, for me, success in my career is every time I have a patient who I have been able to contribute to improving their quality of life or their life in some way. And sometimes even when you give people bad news, it improves my sense of achievement, because if you can spend the time talking to them and somehow improve or limit the heartache that they experience at a time of bad diagnosis and be there to support them, then it's a two-way street. We get emotionally rewarded from helping others. So for me, that is one form of success. For me, it's ultimately about patients and the interactions I have with my patients. The other stuff is when I say other stuff, I mean giving lectures and the writing of papers. That's secondary. That is because of it allows me to teach others and be able to help them achieve what I am able to do or being taught to do. And people have spent the time teaching me and giving me these amazing skills. But it's that actually helping of patients every day that makes it really worthwhile for me. The other part of my success is watching my children grow up. But that's a totally different side of it. And I try not to let one compromise the other. For example, for me, I gave up certain things early on which other people may value more, but for me it was a sacrifice of spending time seeing patients or spending time doing academic research, and for me that wasn't what I really enjoyed as much, so I spent this time doing more of this stuff. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely, it makes so much sense. And what it actually tells me is that you've been so true to your initial intent and your core purpose. And so to know that early on that you had a compassionate heart, that you wanted to make a difference, and that you knew that would be in medicine, and that you've pursued that opportunity via ophthalmology, and now you are at this stage of your career going, you know what, that is my joy. That's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that what you thought you wanted to do is actually what you get to do every single day. And you're also acutely aware early on that being a mum and having a balance there, that wasn't inconvenience, was actually a dual stream in what you would see as being part of your life and a success measure. And the fact that I then ask you and you parallel them beautifully, that you are very happy and contented that you are pursuing your professional dream, but you're also highly valuing and making choices around your family life. And I think well done to you to be able to, because it's not easy. There's always competing factors that can.
You're absolutely right. It's not. You're absolutely right. It's not easy. And on Monday my daughter had a swimming carnival, and she told me about 10 times last week I had a swimming carnival on Monday. But on Monday morning she said to me, "Mum, I've got the swimming carnival, but it's okay for you not to come because I know your work is more important." And with those words, I knew that I had to go to the swimming carnival. Because when she kept telling me that my work was more important than she was, I had to get some help to get covered for 2 hours and duck into her carnival. I do notice that with men, and no criticism, but at least in our family, I need to rearrange whatever I'm doing. And if I have to operate, then they come to theatre with me and lie in the bed. Whereas with my husband, he never has to worry about that. It's just a different division of responsibility. And it sounds terrible, but I guess that's also a privilege that they want me. I don't see that as a bad thing because, when he has to go to theatre, it's all about him and all about what he needs.
Yeah.
But when I have to go to theatre, if the children are sick, it's first to sort out the kids, and then it's about me and what I need so I can be the best doctor I can try and be.
What does, so we've talked about what success looks like for you. What does it feel like?
So it's interesting you say that, because I would say that I haven't actually been successful yet, because there's more to do and more work to be done. So as you know, part of my professional life is also I'm involved in a startup called Beamers. And the drive for Beamers is that we can reduce the incidence of disease or prevent some disease from happening. And so I feel like, I love seeing patients but I can only help so many people one-on-one treating them. But if we can reduce disease, then we can help many, many people. And I often feel that we're early on in learning how to get this message through. And there's a lot of work to be done yet. So when you say, how does it feel to be successful? I don't feel like we've gotten there yet. Maybe later I'll be able to answer that question.
Okay.
But when I see patients who say to me, what could I have done to reduce my chance of having XY, pterygiums, cancers on the eyelids, then I know that they could have reduced it by being protected in childhood. Until we start doing that on a good level, I don't think I can say that I know what success is yet.
I think you're being very humble, and what I'm hearing is you are a high achiever and you're waiting for it all to be finished, and a little possibility is it's never finishes. So it's good to celebrate the early wins and the regular wins, and I think you have got many of them. So I think permission to smell the roses, but also I hear what you're saying, that there is so much more to do. How about you tell the listeners a little bit more about Beamers? Why did you start up a business called Beamers? What is Beamers?
Dr. Elena Zeldovich and I were at the World Society Pediatric meeting in 2015, and they were talking about all the science that shows how much we need to protect the eyes, and particularly in childhood, when the eye has maximum risk of damage because the pediatric eye has not developed its natural defences as well as an adult eye has. And so that's the time in life that children's eyes need to be protected. And they had put out a statement as well at the same time asking for all kids to be protected 365 days from sunrise to sunset. And when we came home, we wanted to find something to protect our own children. So as you have appreciated, my children are very important to me, and Dr. Zeldovich, it's the same story. So we couldn't find anything to protect our kids under $550 was what we were quoted. So we decided we would do something about it, not only to protect our kids, but all kids. And the speaker said at the end of the lecture, if all the ophthalmologists in this room could go and speak to their local Prime Minister and have health policy changed, we'll be able to fix this problem. Well, as you and I know, going and speaking to our local Prime Minister isn't that easy. So we're slowly working on it. We've produced a product now that we're happy is designed to do the job that we're aiming to do.
So that's sunglasses for children?
Protect eyes, and so we have created Beamers, which produces sunglasses for children with OptoShield technology.
Terrific.
And we also have Beamers for adults with OptoShield technology. So that's what we're doing, and that was the drive behind it.
So you're also an entrepreneur, which is exciting. There must have been lots of learning in that journey to actually set up your own business in that way, in a different space to your professional practice.
Correct. It's been a massive learning curve, and it's interesting that when we speak in our medical practices to patients, they hear what we have to say. But when we speak in the general public, there's quite a cynicism, and people don't hear the message because they automatically assume that there must be the underlying desire to sell the sunglasses to why you're doing it, which we found very interesting because the rest of our lives no one questions our underlying motive, and they understand that our motive is to help. And when people actually understand what we do as an ophthalmologist, they understand that if we're really successful, we'll reduce our work. So that cynicism, we're learning how to cut through, and you're right, it's been a massive learning curve for us in all sorts of areas.
I think that must be a real eye-opener. That's right. As a clinician, they're not thinking, gee, are you trying to overbill me? But because bringing out an eyewear line or a retail type commercial product, suddenly it creates a different view, which is interesting because you're the same person, and obviously all of your intent is actually just to save sight and to prevent future damage, unnecessary damage, which is what you live and breathe to do. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's only once you understand the underlying drive of the person do you understand that. And I understand that cynicism exists.
Yeah.
But it's been interesting for us to look. That's probably been the biggest learning curve for us.
As well as being a doctor and then setting up a practice like that, what further studies have you needed to do? Did you need to do business studies?
You're quite right. We decided to do a little further study and have started an MBA. We're actually a third of the way through our MBA. So now we have Beamers, do our MBA, work full time, and juggle 2 kids.
You are one very busy woman. Absolutely. But still loving it and still juggling it, and then therefore making more and more choices every day as to how you value your time and how you choose to spend it, I'm assuming.
Absolutely. And sometimes the children need to be reassured.
Yeah. What are your, so just before we finish then, what is your biggest learning over your career?
I guess the biggest thing I learned over my career is that I'm never going to stop learning. You might master one thing, but there are so many other things that we need to do. And that if you really want something, nothing is going to stand in your way because you're going to be dedicated to do it. I don't think we should ever feel threatened by the fact that we're women or that we haven't achieved something yet. I have had people say to me over the years things like, don't you think you're nuts for having tried to do X, Y, or Z? I don't ever feel like even if I fail at something that I was nuts for trying, because I wouldn't have achieved any of the other things that I have achieved if I hadn't tried. So I wish everybody the absolute best on their journeys. We all have a different journey and a different desire of what's important. I think planning is absolutely essential. You need to make lists of what you want to achieve and why, because if you know what you want to achieve and what you want the outcome to look like in 10 years' time, then you have some hope of making a strategy to get there. And without a plan, you've got no map. Nobody can get to a destination without a map. And for the people doing your course, I think that they are already on their way because they're getting guidance and support and they're getting help making their maps.
Yeah, absolutely.
So congratulations to everyone who's doing your course.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for your sharing today, sharing your personal and professional journey, and for the tips that you've given for other women, particularly going along there and building their careers at this time. It's been really valuable.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Memoirs of Successful Women. You can find me at anniegibbins.com, where you can download my free resources, get connected on social, and check out my online magic transformation program. If you love this show, feel free to subscribe to future episodes and, of course, share it with your friends. I'll see you again soon, and until then, happy podcasting.